So Simplicity is not normally where you'd find judicial postings, but he posted, and I was like, yeah, I could get rejected from another judge. Like, why not? But it was a mailed application, which is a little painful because normally Oscar, you can just send them off online. Yeah. And this one was like, it'll cost like $25 to apply. I was like, that's like a bad date, like you pay $25 and you never hear back again.
Not to mention it's like 5 hours behind too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a 5-hour time difference. So I sent it off.
Or a good date. Yeah, come on.
But yeah, so I sent it off thinking I probably won't ever hear back from this, and then they emailed me and wanted to set up an interview, and took it from there.
So did they fly you out, or was this a Skype session?
It was a Skype session. So for most clerkships, you do have to fly out on your own dime. The government won't pay for you to fly out. Thankfully, they did not make me do that in Hawaii because that would have been very expensive.
Why, no kidding.
Just to say, no.
Right, yeah. It's like, thank you for spending $700. It's a no, but have a good life.
Yeah.
It would be demoralizing for sure.
But you could have turned it into a
vacation, yeah,
too.
for sure.
Oh yeah, I have to fly out to Hawaii. Darn that law school. But now you get to go out. So are they going to pay for you to fly out there now that you're employed with them?
Nope, there's no moving, relocation costs or anything like that. It's pretty much entirely on your own dime, which is kind of the case for any federal government job.
Oh, that's horrible. Awful that you have to go through all of that.
It really is debilitating, I think. Yeah. Thank you for pitying me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, there is
it's
one
so
law
horrible
school
you have
in law
to move
school.
there.
I think.
What?
I was looking at law schools in Hawaii to see if they actually had one.
Yeah, they have one. Yeah, they have a law
How do
school
I
there.
transfer?
Is it too late to transfer?
Yeah, the law school is actually... So I'll be in Honolulu on Oahu, and that's where the law school is as well. So I don't imagine I'll ever go there, but if I do, it's there.
And so what does a clerk do?
So it'll vary depending on what position you're in, which is such a typical law school answer. It depends. As a Supreme Court clerk, I have two main roles. One is to review petitions for cert. So for people who want the Supreme Court to review their cases, I will review their cert petitions and write memos, basically explain to my justice, I think we should take this case, or I don't think we should take this case, and here's all the state constitutional complications and issues it raises. On the other side, I will write either opinions or dissents or concurrences, obviously depending on how my justice comes out. I'll take the first draft of that, and then it's a very long process of shooting it back and forth between the justice as he changes a sentence, and I change it, and he's like, no, that's not what I meant with the sentence, and then 5 months later you have an opinion finally that is up to the caliber. So that's a lot of it. Obviously, if you
His name is on it, and you're not even a
that's
footnote.
interesting. My wife takes about a month to come up to an opinion too. So
hot take. Okay. Obviously no one knows which clerks contributed to what except for the people in the chambers, but the judiciary could not function without clerks.
But you know it, so that's all that matters.
I know, right.
So is this a pretty well paid, or what do clerks get paid after law school? So if you don't mind me prying.
No, so the government does adjust it based on where you live, right? So if you are
Hawaii,
if you're in Idaho, you would get paid less than someone who is in New York City, let's say.
Right.
Since this is a state level clerkship, it doesn't pay quite on the same level as the federal government, but it's a very small difference. So that's not really that bad. It's in the $60,000 to $70,000 range.
Really?
So less than a lot of the small firms will start you here in Minneapolis. Certainly less than a lot of the big firms will start you off with. But with basically what it does for your career opportunities, it's pretty good. And the fact that it's paid, I mean, it's not like you're doing a public interest, like here's $20,000, good luck type thing. Right. It's, here's a reasonable salary that's, millennials don't normally start with on any job. And you're a clerk for a second year, you get on a higher pay scale. So it does scale after that, but they cap you at 4 years of clerking on the federal level. So,
and then they kick you out, or what? Do they offer you a renewal thing, or what?
No, because the clerkships are either term clerks, where it's 1 year or 2 year clerkships, or they're career clerks, where that's just what your career is going to be. So after 4 years, you're only eligible to be a career clerk. They basically are like, you need to stop taking these opportunities from other people and need to commit to being a clerk or go find something else.
So why would someone decide to become a clerk as opposed to go working for a large law firm where you could possibly make significantly more than what you would as a clerk?
I think there'd be three big reasons why you clerk. One is the level of experience that you get as a clerk in terms of preparing you to be a lawyer is unparalleled in any other legal job you can take. You get to see a massive amount of writing, both good and very bad. If any of you ever get the chance to externship, which I highly recommend, you will be amazed at the things people submit to the court. And you're like, you signed off on that. What were you thinking?
Like that lawyers will...
Yeah, like lawyers will submit it, and you're just like, did you go to law school? Because I don't think you did. Or you didn't have a legal writing course, apparently. So you get not only exposed to a lot of good writing and bad writing, and exposed to good arguing and bad oral advocacy, but you're also working with one of the people who have reached the pinnacle of the legal career, right? And their standards are very high. So you become a very good writer very quick. Which is not necessarily something that can be said for a lot of starting jobs in the law field, where a lot of first-year associates are doing a lot of research memos and maybe get to argue a motion hearing on a pro bono case if they're lucky, right? Or they're writing, a short paragraph of a brief, but it takes a while to build up to where the firm trusts you in the big law world. Obviously, if you're a public defender or a prosecutor, it's a very different experience. So level experience is 1. 2, no billables, which is really nice. You don't have to live that billable lifestyle where, you're there till 4 a.m. on Saturday trying to crank out the billables. And you get a lot of time to, depending on your level, with the Supreme Court, you have a lot of time to produce these opinions. So you can spend 3 days straight researching a very nuanced point that the parties didn't even raise, but you discovered because it could be important, right? At a law firm, they you have 40 minutes to write this brief, and that's all we can bill this client for, right? And so it just creates a different dynamic in terms of what you're trying to do. And the third one is just the network that you get from a judge. You're connected into an entire network of other clerks. You have this person who's reached the pinnacle of the legal field who will then go out and say, this person is going to be a good lawyer. I recommend you hire them. And that's not really something that can be replicated at a law firm, especially because if you're trying to lateral, you can't exactly go to your boss and be like, will you write me a letter of rec so I can lateral to Faegre? They're like, no, get out of my firm, So, so you get a mentorship in a way that you don't necessarily get at a firm, and access to a really broad network. And you get to go to live in paradise, depending on where you get clerkship. So that helps too.
Yeah. So like those people that clerk in North Dakota.
Woo-hoo.
Not so much.
No. Minot, North Dakota.
I love North
living
Dakota.
the dream.
What's wrong with North Dakota?
A lot of things.
What's right about North Dakota? That's the question.
I took a train to Minot once and got hit by an 18-wheeler. So that's about my only experience with
Wait,
North
the
Dakota.
train got hit?
The train got hit, yeah. We were
That's
stalled for
awesome.
5 hours. So
They have the world's largest buffalo. I went there. It was like a religious experience for me. It's
they
a
have
big
the
old
world's
statue.
only buffalo, right?
Yeah,
this
but
point.
also the world's largest.
Good point.
Yep.
Wow.
Lots of things await you in North Dakota.
Is Mount Rushmore, or is that South Dakota?
That's
No,
South
it's South
Dakota,
Dakota.
yeah.
I'm just curious. Were you on a journal at all?
Yeah, I was on the Minnesota Journal of International Law. I was a staff member my 2.0 year and executive editor the 3.0 year, which is a heavily administrative role. And then I have a note called Consociationalism, a constitutional solution for ethnic violence in South Sudan, that'll be published in the upcoming edition of the journal.
Nice.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Journals is a super good experience.
I'm going to try to petition. So that's why I asked.
Petitioning's awful. Journal is good.
Okay,
How
cool.
do you petition to be on a journal?
Oh.
I mean, varies from school to school.
You have to write or don't you have to do
So
a
you
submission?
go, they have like a set pickup time where you pick up this huge packet, and there's a main case and then a bunch of like bagging materials that could be anything from other cases to like a Bible verse or something from Shakespeare to like other journal articles, I imagine. And it's a 400-page stack. And then you look at everything you can and write a comment, I believe, on the main case in there and say, like, do you think it's rightly decided and why? And then try to pull from all the other pieces to make your point.
Yep, and then you also, it's basically like a mini note for all intents and purposes. And then you also have a blue booking portion where you have 20-something exercises and they're just riddled with blue book errors. And you just have to correct it and cite to the blue book. And those are collated into a petitioning score. And then journals will take in varying things like the petitioning score, personal statement, GPA, different things like that.
And you have 2 weeks.
Wow.
I was talking to other colleagues and they say, like, if you're going to do one, you could either, like, I recommend either doing some kind of journal or law review or moot court. And after hearing all that, I'm still leaning towards moot court.
So at the U, you don't have a choice. You have to do a journal or you have to do a moot court, which is kind of unique. Of really, a lot of law schools don't make you do that. So if you don't petition at all, you'll automatically be placed on a moot court, but you can rank a preference. Or if you petition but you don't get on a journal, then you'll default into a moot court.
So the way, like, with Mitchell Hamlin at least, or maybe some other journals, I don't know, like, it's very competitive to get into the journal. So if you're forced to go into one or the other, is it just heavily weighted towards moot court and then only a select few get into journals at the U, or how does that work?
So this year, when I was reviewing petitions, we had, I believe, 116 people petition, and 100 were offered
Isn't that
journal
like
positions.
half of the class or something like that?
It's about half the class petitions, yeah. And then a very large number of the people will get on a journal. A lot of the reasons why you don't get on a journal would be if you violated some part of the honor code, because it's very strict about not working together with another person. It has to be completely solo. Or a lot of times people will pick it up 2-3 days beforehand thinking, well, I'll just like get through this real quick, and they don't realize like, oh no, I won't get through this. And so if the score is low enough, or if it's clear the person just kind of petitioned just to petition and doesn't really want to be on any of the journals, that can also be hard
Maybe
to get as well.
Maybe I'm thinking of law review.
Law review is competitive.
Yeah,
law review is the most competitive. And a lot of times you have people who only rank law review, which I think is a mistake. I think that law review is extremely helpful. It can be very prestigious, right? It looks good on a resume, and it will make you a good writer and a good blue booker. But the other journals will do that as well. And so I think you choose to rank only law review at your peril.
And so when do you actually start your clerkship?
So I will fly to Hawaii August 16th, and I will start August 19th. So I basically get the weekend.
What are you going to do between now and then? Is it just studying for the LSAT? Or sorry, for the...
Oh, God, I hope I don't have to take the LSAT.
The bar exam, sorry.
Yeah, so I'll graduate. Minnesota's graduation is May 18th, so I'll do that. And then bar study, until bar prep until the bar exam, take the bar exam. My girlfriend and I will road trip down to Texas to see my family, come back, and I'll fly out to Hawaii.
Is she coming with you?
Wah,
wah. Sorry.
Wah, wah. No. She will be coming in October. So have some time to figure it out.
Is she in law school too? Or
no, thank God.
Okay.
She is not a law student. She works in the mental health field.
So does my wife.
Yeah, she was originally in patient care, but now she's doing more administrative insurance work.
Nice.
And so, how have cold calls been for your career at law school?
Never terrifying, which is good. There's always a reputation that cold calls are scary. I was never really scared. I bombed some for sure.
Same.
But
what was that, Anthony?
Same. I've been so wrong. I think I told you this already, but there's been times where I've been so wrong. Like I had this professor that kept tallies of everyone because you had to participate. And you'd keep tallies on a sheet, and I went to go answer the question, and he had the pencil over my name, and I answered it so wrong. He pulled his pencil back, ignored me, and just moved on to the next topic. Yikes! I'm like, ouch.
Do you remember any time that you bombed?
Oh yeah, so torts. Day one, our professor, we were assigned the case of the thorns, which is this famous case from the 1500s.
I never read that.
And this professor asked, what is the procedural posture of the case at bar? That was the specific way he asked it. And it was like a killing field. Every single person in my section tried to answer the question, and none of us got it right. And we were just throwing out anything and everything we could. And at the end, he was like, wow, I'm really disappointed that y'all don't know this. And we were like, we are children at the law right now. This is our first class of law school ever at 8 a.m. And finally, one of my really good friends, Clayton, says, plaintiff demurred? And he's like, yep. And then just moved on like we hadn't just spent a whole class dying. Yeah, so I raised my hand 5 times trying to answer, and there was people who tried to answer 4 or 5, 3 times. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And he was giving us no hints. He would just be like, no, and ask the question again. It was brutal. So that was my very first cold call experience. And then I was on call for our very first contracts class. That's what it was, contracts. So that's fun on the first day. And just all right, you're up. And you're like, okay, cool.
Colleen, do you remember any awful cold calls?
Yes, this is actually bringing up, I guess it's not too much of a cold call. This is a class on international law. They've since restructured the class. It's called International Human Rights now. But we were discussing the first Iraq war, and we all had to represent countries. And I chose the U.S., obviously, because it was so easy we all had to pick United Nations, and I chose the U.S. because it was obviously easy to research. And the professor, Delahunty, the entire class kept coming back to me and asking me questions. I would get every single question wrong, and